Welcome to this explainer. Today we are going to decode something that is incredibly common, but honestly so deeply misunderstood. If you're a parent or a caregiver, you have almost certainly experienced this baffling little moment. You know the one. You expect your kid to be over the moon about an upcoming event, but instead, you get this completely unexpected, totally deflating reaction. Well, today we are unpacking the hidden social anxiety of school trips. And I promise you, by the end of this, you are never going to look at a simple school permission slip the exact same way again. So let's put ourselves right in this scenario. Your child comes home from school, drops their bag, and hands you a piece of paper with a date and a location printed on it. It's a field trip. You immediately expect to see their face light up, right? I mean, it's a day out of the classroom, but instead, nothing. Just a completely blank face. You ask, hey, do you want to go? And you are met with a totally flat, I don't know, or maybe it doesn't matter. And then the classic dismissive shrug. You take that piece of paper and you just leave it right there on the kitchen table, and it sits there. Literally for a week. As you walk past it day after day, making your coffee, you can't help but wonder, what is going on here? Isn't a school trip supposed to be the highlight of the month? Why wouldn't they want to go out and just have fun with their friends? You might eventually just sign the thing and send it back without bringing it up again, but that shrug, it kind of stays stuck in the back of your mind, doesn't it? Now, maybe your story looks a little different, because that dismissive shrug actually takes a whole bunch of different forms. Actually, scratch that. Sometimes you don't even see the form at all. It stays mysteriously buried at the absolute bottom of their backpack until the teacher finally emails you about it. Or here's a common one. Everything is signed, paid for, ready to go, but on the very morning of the trip, your child suddenly wakes up with a severe stomach ache and dizziness, and they just absolutely can't go. Or maybe they do go, but when they walk back through the front door, you get a completely silent, "It was fine." They act as if the day never even happened. So why does a fun day out trigger all of this chaos?
Well, let's dive into truth one, the hidden social exam.
This right here is where we hit a massive disconnect. It's a total paradigm shift. Think about a normal day at school. There is a deeply established order. Everyone knows who sits next to who talks to who belongs to which group. Your child has found a place in that carefully built daily routine. Sure, it might be a fragile place, but it is theirs. As adults, we look at a field trip as a fun break from the grind. But a child, they view it as the total destruction of their safe, predictable social order. It's like flipping over the game board. And losing that safe ecosystem, that brings an absolutely tremendous burden. Because at that age, a threat to their social standing feels as real to the developing brain as a literal physical danger, like a bear chasing them. So the absolute crucial takeaway here is this. When the brain sounds that alarm, the body reacts. That sudden warning stomachache, the dizziness, refusing to get out of bed, they are not faking it. Studies actually show that the human brain processes social rejection in the exact same regions that process physical pain. It is a very real biological stress response. Which brings us right to truth two. Fear of the wrong place. When the big day finally arrives, your child's absolute greatest terror isn't about failing to have fun. It's the terror of being caught in the wrong place. A fun day out is actually just a series of agonizing micro-transitions for them. Let's walk through it. Step one, getting on the bus. Who is going to sit next to them? If nobody does, they are visibly, publicly alone. Step two, arriving at the museum and the teacher says, split into groups. If they aren't quickly pulled into a circle, everybody sees it. Step three, standing there holding a lunch tray. Who is going to wave them over? These seem like tiny passing moments to us, but to your child, the entire day is a total minefield of potential rejections. So when you view a field trip through that lens, suddenly everything makes perfect sense, right? The possibility of failing this massive, high-stakes social exam in front of all their peers is utterly terrifying. Therefore, the internal logic for them is incredibly simple and undeniable. Staying homesick hurts far, far less than being caught alone in the wrong place. Pretending to be ill, or actually feeling physically ill from the sheer panic of it all, becomes a much, much safer alternative than facing that kind of public humiliation. Let's move on to truth three, the weight of silence. Now, you are probably asking yourself, okay, if they are so terrified, why don't they just tell me? Why the shrug? When you ask them why they don't want to go and they say, I don't know, you have to realize that response is not an empty space. It's not them having no thoughts. It is actually a massive, overwhelming emotional fullness. They desperately want to answer you, but the brain is feeling these heavy, wildly complex emotions, and their emotional vocabulary simply hasn't developed enough to actually put it into words. Think about what it would actually take for a kid to answer that question honestly. They would have to look at you and say, I am terrified no one is going to sit next to me on the bus today. Admitting that level of vulnerability is incredibly exposing. The intense shame tied just to the mere possibility of being lonely is completely overwhelming. So, lacking the words to safely explain all of this without feeling totally humiliated, they default to what works: a protective, defensive shrug.
And the anxiety doesn't end when the bus gets back. Here is truth 4, the aftermath.
That heavy silence almost always continues even after they get home. And here is exactly why the standard go-to parent question, how was it, completely fails us. If the day was hard, answering that question requires them to relive the trauma of all those little micro-rejections all over again. But honestly, even if it was a good day, it was likely an incredibly complex emotional roller coaster. I mean, did someone sit with them? When did they feel safe? When did they feel anxious again? How was it is just way too broad of a question. It forces them to compress an entire day of social survival into a single-word summary. So what do? They just say, fine. Okay, so how do we fix this? Let's talk about opening the communication door. How do we break through that silence without pushing them too hard? I want you to picture that kitchen table again. Look back at that white piece of paper. We have to start seeing it for what it truly is. It's not a fun list of museum exhibits and bus departure times. It is an invitation to a heavy, stressful social exam. When they handed it to you, their mind was already racing. Will I pass? Will I be left alone? As caregivers, we must recognize the sheer weight of that paper first and foremost. Once you recognize that weight, here is the absolute game changer. It's a crucial communication pivot. Mentally cross out the question, do you want to go? And replace it with this: what are you thinking about that day? Do you hear the difference there? This new question is completely low pressure. It doesn't force an immediate yes or no, and it certainly doesn't force them to deeply analyze their social trauma on the spot. It simply cracks the door open. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought. A child's reluctance to go on a school trip is almost never about avoiding fun. It is entirely about fearing being invisible, or worse, being highly visible while being excluded. Empathy and a gently open door are the absolute keys here. When your child realizes you aren't going to force an answer out of them and that you are just holding safe space for them, they will walk through that door when they are ready. So it makes you wonder, what other unspoken fears might your child be carrying around in their backpack today? Keep learning, keep asking the right questions, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.